Principles of Finance, a la shmup. Beyond Thunder Drone. Okay, so wow, you did the deal. Maybe you're about to start actually earning those big fat paychecks. So yeah, one rainy morning, the docs all got signed. Different docs. Your collective efforts paid $1.4 billion for ticker BRND, Blade Runner Nano Drone. It bought everything. The blades in inventory, the cash on the balance sheet, the pension liabilities, the patents, the distribution contracts, the risks, the potential, the whole freaking shark. All right, as part of the deal, the company using $500 million of cash they already had on their balance sheet, $150 million of your private equity shop's equity, and $50 million rolled in from management ownership stakes. Yeah, they weren't up for ponying the entire $150 million. And you borrowed $700 million at 7.13% interest. Total cost then for BRND, $1.4 billion. Why the higher interest rate from the originally planned and estimated 6.75%? Except for the fact that, it made for easy math in the $50 million a year interest payments for this problem. Because your general partners didn't want to add warrant coverage to the debt deal. Adding warrants given to the bank for some percentage equity ownership of the company as a kind of equity kicker if the deal went well, that's a common practice in these kinds of LBOs. Warrants are a lot like stock options, only they tend to last a lot longer, if not forever, and they can be summarily issued by the company. But you bought 20 million shares at $70 each, and the bank wanted 1 million warrants, which would eventually notionally turn into 1 million shares of stock if the bank wanted them to. That is, if the deal went well and BRND re-IPO'd, say 5 years later, then the bank could benefit handsomely beyond the interest it had received. But the partners opted for just paying the higher interest rates on the debt and opted out of the 1 million warrants that the bank wanted, which would have made for the equivalent of, 21 million shares outstanding instead of just 20. It's 5% of the company there, right? Well, you knew this wasn't going to be a smooth ride. As one of your older, wiser partners suggested, there were lots of cockroaches in the walls, and when one crawls out, what are the odds there are hundreds more inside that wall? Well, you found 3 big fat ones in your due diligence, the biggest of which was that the factory needed meaningful upgrades to continue functioning safely. In fact, it would suck off all of the excess cash for 3 years other than interest payments to the build/repair efforts of, making that factory modern. Lots of work, lots of stress. Here's how you looked at biz school graduation. Here's how you looked the day of the deal. And here's how you look now. Big fat time dissolved. So here you are, 3 years after you bought BRND and took it private for $1.4 billion. You only feel 30 years older. The company has been flat. Flat on growth, flat on profits, flat on metrics, but not flat on its back, at least not yet anyway. Finally, that third drone you wanted to get out there into the marketplace to the consumers, the one that goes underwater, Hydro Drone, the Gold Digger, aka Thunder Drone, that's finally ready. And everyone is excited about it. So excited, in fact, that you were approached by bankers to take you public again right now-ish, selling only 15% of the company's equity to the public. Thunder Drone, wasn't that the Mel Gibson movie? All right, whatever. It's the hottest product never launched. Everyone at Drone World is whispering about it. The mock-ups were purposely leaked. The drone swims underwater at up to 12 knots and comes with 12 different add-ons, including an auto gold digger. What is that? Well, on a 24-hour battery charge, it can dig off the coast of Alaska near Nome. That's right, it's a Nome drone. In those shallow waters where there are literally tons of gold just laying there, the thing digs up under the overburden, filters the silt, and creates theoretically rich pay dirt when it runs out of a charge, and then it just floats back to the surface, texting a, pick me up at these GPS coordinates signal to the boat. Oh, and it works all day and night with no union pension fund benefits for gold digging or overtime charges or threats of a strike. Despite the previous few years of flattish revenues and margins, this new device is cited by all those in the know as being the best thing to hit droning since Charlie Brown's school teacher. Remember the wah, 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 wah? Best thing since she did her thing. With all of this heat and the option for the partnership to begin the process of getting liquid in its $150 million of equity invested in this $1.4 billion enterprise value deal, well, the opportunity to go public was welcomed. So they went with Silver Slacks and took management on a roadshow. Wisely, when the bankers marketed the deal, they brought drones with them and/or had the hedge and mutual fund buyers meet them in parking lots and parks just outside their boring offices, or they met on their yachts. Most deal meetings are just paper and lawyers and a canned management pitch, but these were different, especially when the banker handed the fund manager the control device and had her fly it around, peek in a few windows, frightening shower cap wearers, and, return safely. While there wasn't anything radically new about these flying drones, they flew way better and easier and lasted a lot longer than the old ones. And they used to be the domain of tech geeks. They were just making their way into mainstream society such that, everyone had to have one. And generally, everyone soon pretty much would. At least that was the whisper anyway among the very pumped investment community. Most of the deal meetings not only left with the manager buying a drone for herself, but a full order of 100,000 shares with almost no price limit at the IPO. Lots of mumbled, this is the futures. The deal's roadshow was to last 3 weeks, and sure enough, in the middle of it, the company received a softball offer, meaning not exactly a cashier's check, but everyone knew Apple didn't mess around when they wanted something, and they were good for the money. And that deal came from Apple wanting to buy them for $1.6 billion gross, meaning that if they were to accept, well, they'd need to subtract the $700 million in net debt and pay their own damn banker fees. Net of everything, the deal would bring the firm's $150 million plus management's $50 million, that $200 in, after debt and commissions were paid, well, it'd bring them over $800 million. That's about a 400% gain, or 4x, in 3.5 years. Nice one to be chalked up in the win column. You and your partners digest what all this means. Well, specifically, it means that they'd have turned their $150 million into $600 million, and you feel good about having convinced the company to turn its go-private winnings right back around to the tune of, $50 million there. Management stake would now be worth $200 million if you take this deal, so you feel good about making money for your friends. You'd show a cash-on-cash gain of $450 million, and your firm would keep 20% of that gain. The 600 minus the 150 there, yeah, they invested. 20% of the 450 is $90 million. Really a good return, and you'd personally get a meaningful portion of that money in return for having kind of run and found the deal. Something like, maybe 5, 8, 10% or so. It would set you up for life, more or less, at least in small-town America. You could pay off the rest of your school loans, buy your parents a house, and have dough left over for a divorce or two down the line. Well, you think you want to do this deal, sell to Apple, and take a nice, clean, safe victory lap. So you rush back to your bosses and ask how you get the sales papers going. And there's a long beat and a pause, and they look at you, and one of the partners, not from California, asks you, "Are you high?" Well, the senior partner stands on a chair and intones to the assemblage of partners in their boardroom, "Lassie, we have the hottest electronic property on earth right here." And he states it like he even knows what an electronic property is. He was amazed last year when he received his first cell phone, noting audibly to everybody nearby that, gasp, "It has no wires. Magic." So he knew a lot about how to raise money for private equity shops, but really next to nothing about drones. And at 73 years old, well, who could fault him? The lack of awareness didn't stop him, however, as he threw down on the table an issue of Drones and Ammo magazine, whose cover has the Thunder drone on it. "We're gonna make a mint on this thing. At 6x, it takes our firm to the 25% instead of the 20% carry grid, and we're all the richer. Go back to Apple and hold up 3 fingers and ask him to read between the lines." Translation, if the firm got just a little bit greedy and sold out their position for $750 million instead of $600 million, well, they'd then take a higher cut of investment profits from their limited partners who had given them the money in the first place. Instead of 20% of the $450 million of gains that gave them $90 million to spread around, well, they'd get 25% of $600 million or $150 million to spread around there. The higher carry or profit participation based on superior investment investment performance is, well, pretty common in this equity schmequity world, and, well, everyone in the room knew it. The queasy feeling in your stomach hadn't left for 3.5 years. You'd guessed you were lactose intolerant, but you're realizing that, you're stupid risk intolerant instead. So you grumble and tell Apple, thank you, but no thank you, and push the IPO forward as directed. In this case, you haven't killed the Apple option. You could go public, raise a little money, and they could still buy you. The company really doesn't need the cash, and in fact, it's only selling 10 to 15% of itself to the public. It'll start with 30 million shares outstanding to comprise the entire company at a $1.5 billion valuation at $50 a share, and sell 3 million newly minted printed shares to the public to raise $150 million for the company. At its base case, then, the company would then have 30 million plus 3 million, or 33 million total shares outstanding at $50 a share for a 33 times 50 equals $1.65 billion market valuation. There would be a stock option pool incremental to this number, and there would also be accommodation for a green shoe to the investment bankers in case the deal got really hot. So instead of then selling 3 million shares at $50 each, well, they could then sell maybe 4 or even 5 million shares at $60 each, or maybe more, raise a little bit more money for a little bit more dilution, but at a decent price. Well, you like more shares, less risk. More helps you sleep at night, and it's not as addicting as Ambien.